From Beer of the Day World Headquarters in Elk Grove, California, it's the Beer of the Day podcast. Tonight we try beer from all around the world and even outside of this world. We try a porter from Iceland, an imperial stout from outer space. We tried 2 beers from the fictitious Game of Thrones world of Westeros, and 4 other beers from 4 corners of the US of A. I'm Dallas Helliker. Joining me tonight, Andy Hamilton, Britton and Joel Miner, Brandon Hofer, Kira Hopkin, and live in studio, Jeff Miller.
Wow.
Welcome.
What a group.
We got a huge turnout tonight.
Yeah, really.
It's a packed house.
We're going to start turning people away.
Well, when you have this much good beer, people just come out of the woodwork. All right, first beer. Icelandic Toasted Porter. This is from Einstock Ulgert is the name of the brewery. And this is from Akureyri is the name of the town it's from.
Is that in Spain?
I mispronounced that, but we can listen to this lady pronounce it. You can hear it.
A mere 45-minute flight from Reykjavik is the beautiful town of Akureyri. Situated on the shores of the north coast, this charming port town is the commercial and cultural capital of northern Iceland. Akureyri is also the ideal location from where to explore some of Iceland's most beautiful natural gems.
And a great place to brew beer.
2 things. Can we replay that one more time?
That was hot.
And then 2, can you try to sound like that?
Can you like lip sync it?
Akureyri.
Akureyri. All right, so this beer we've had for a while, and it's just been trying to fit an Iceland beer into the theme. So
It doesn't fit with Oregon or Pacific Coast or California.
right, but when you
Or
have
U.S.
when you have a beer made from space yeast, Iceland's
close.
It's a lot closer, yeah. So
Well, when you said beers out of this world, I chuckled because I thought you were talking about the beer from Iceland. I forgot about the one that's actually from space.
yeah, well,
I
But-
chuckled when he said space yeast because that just sounds dirty.
space yeast. Sounds pretty good to me.
It's pretty dark for Icelandic beer.
Have you had any others?
No.
This is my first Icelandic beer. This is probably the only brewery from Iceland that we can get here in the U.S. I'm pretty sure.
There's actually more.
Maybe.
So no.
You think it, but actually, I've seen a few more at Capital Beer. So
Different breweries.
this is the first of many Icelandic
Wow.
beers that we'll feature here on the Beer of the Day podcast.
So first thing, when you hold it up to the light, you can't even see your fingers through it. Looking in the glass.
It's
so-
dark, but it's not black. It's dark brown.
Yeah, it's dark brown, but it's
It's like coffee.
dirty dark brown.
Yeah, it definitely looks like coffee.
Now mine looks
Kind of cloudy.
lighter than yours.
Yeah, but there's like a cloudiness to it. Did you get the bottom?
He got the bottom.
I got the last of it. And
there's
Kira
still-
must have had the second to last. Yeah.
We still have bottom over here, so we don't know.
All right, so I get kind of a toasty malt smell. It's not super strong on the aroma.
I will say it doesn't, like most porters have kind of a smoky or a coffee. I don't get that at all with this. It's just, like you said, a yeasty aroma.
What I kind of pick up on, it has a crisp finish like a lager almost, and I'm not used to that with the porter. It's got this, it's not icy, but it's this cool, crisp finish.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I think if you closed your eyes and you didn't know it was this dark, I don't know if you would put it at being this dark of a beer from the actual taste. You'd be like, oh, this is like a yeasty lager. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's quite a fair amount of flavor, but then it dissipates pretty quickly, and it's kind of a lighter mouthfeel.
Yeah, it is. If I had one word to describe it, it would be roasty.
Yeah,
Roasty.
Roasty?
Roasty.
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a coffee finish, you know, aftertaste
is.
a good 30 seconds later. There's definitely some coffee notes there, but I agree with Jeff. It's very crisp. It's a lot better than I thought it would be. You think, you know, there's a lot of beers we get from other countries, and they're just not our thing because they do things differently in other countries. It's like eating foreign foods, you might not enjoy it that much because it's different. But this, I like this. It's different, but I like it a lot.
It was like when you were drinking all those German beers, you had a tough time.
Right? They're all the same.
They all tasted the same, but this one, it has kind of a unique character to it.
But it's not that far different from what we get on a day-to-day
not at all.
basis.
No, and we had the coffee show a couple of weeks ago, and I think this beer would have kind of fit on there. It's a little bit like that Coronado Blue.
It is the
Blue,
lighter one.
What's it called? Blue something.
Please.
It's kind of like that, and I think maybe it's a little more balanced. I can't really think of anything bad to say about this beer.
Yeah, I agree. It's got a good flavor, and I think it's for a porter. It's not too thick.
No, it's definitely not, and it's something that I could see myself drinking a few of, like not just one and done.
Yeah, definitely. And now let's get into the beer news of the day. All right, so first story up was a kind of an opinion piece written by a guy online for, I can't remember what the website was, but basically he was talking about how there is these fake beer holidays that we have. St. Patrick's Day, which has nothing to do with beer, as far as the meaning of the holiday, but we've turned it into a drinking thing. Dye your beer green and, get drunk. Cinco de Mayo doesn't have anything to do with drinking beer, but it's like people don't even know what it is. People think it's Spanish or Mexican independence, but it's really just
It was a victory over the French in some battle. That's all it is.
right. But we drink a bunch of Corona that day and tequila and
Tequila.
so
And we always regret the 6th.
yeah.
I think we regret the 5th.
So he came up with some real beer holidays that actually celebrate events in beer that are memorable. And there's Beer Can Appreciation Day, January 24th. That was when Gottfried Kruger Brewing Company of Newark, New Jersey, sent the first 2,000 cans of their beer to Richmond, and the cans had a flat top, and you had to punch 2 holes in it, one to drink out of and one to let the air in. And that kind of revolutionized how we transport beer.
Did they also drink it in 6 seconds? 2 seconds?
I think that came later. There's March 22nd, National Beer Day, or it says National Beer Day is an absolute farce. Colin Harrison Day, it's when brewers were allowed to sell beer with 3.2% alcohol after 13 years of prohibition. So there's that one. There's an International Beer Day, August 7th, and then December 5th, Repeal Day, which really should be like our national drinking holiday.
Right. This December 5th, we're going to rock it.
If you remember.
Forget Christmas.
Yeah, can someone mark your calendar so that we remember this? Because
Tell Siri.
Yeah. Then the other article in the news was Britton actually forwarded me this link. There is it's not Kickstarter, but it's some other website that does that same type of thing, crowdsourcing, to try and get income to build their device. So you can listen to them describe it. It's basically a way to take the beer that we drink when we pour it in a glass and make it seem like it came from on tap. So when you're listening to this, let's decide if this is really a good product or if it's kind of blowing smoke. Let's see.
Physics is a system that takes any carbonated beer and makes it awesome.
So we're just a bunch of technologists and passionate beer geeks, and our pursuit was to create a device that can give us the absolute best beer drinking experience.
We consider ourselves to be master beer chefs, and the whole idea of physics is to bring the perfect pour into your living room.
Physics takes any beer that you can buy in a store,
Get it?
in can or bottle, and it amplifies that and makes it into a draft quality pour.
The proper way to pour out of a bottle is you hold the glass at 45-degree angle, you pour the beer down, and then when you're 2/3 up, you would pour the beer straight down to create the head. Sometimes you put too much, sometimes you get beer foam over the glass, but that head, it always had this unpleasant mouthfeel. What we found is the head of the beer is one of the most critical elements of the beer drinking experience. There's a part of your body called the trigeminal nerve, which will determine texture. If the bubbles are large in the head, your mouth is going to feel a grainy type
beer?
of texture to it, which isn't pleasant.
We take sound waves and
Is this
basically
appropriate for the
chop
radio?
the bubbles into finer bubbles. So what might be one bubble in your beer glass will end up being 100 bubbles in our beer glass.
It has this enhanced aroma, enhanced flavor taste. The sensation is smooth and creamy. It's pretty awesome. Physics was designed with easy use in mind. The first step is you open up the lid and you place any can or bottle into the canister, put the tube inside the can or bottle and close the lid. When you pull the handle forward to tap, what we do is actually pressurize the canister and we push the beer down the bottle, down the can, up through the tube, and there's a digital microcontroller.
This is a real thing?
Controls
Yeah.
the fluid rate.
This is totally a
of the beer
thing.
dispensing out.
And they're serious
What we
about
want to
it.
do is maintain as much carbonation in the beer and not break up the carbonation when we're tapping. And then once you fill up the beer to whatever desired level and you want to put the head on, you'd push the handle in the backwards position and utilize sound waves to break up the carbonation.
The level of
Create a
innuendo
very
in this
dense,
is
creamy and
ridiculous.
smooth head. This is all handcrafted by us in our lab. We took it to the AC Beer Music Fest. From the
Okay.
moment the doors opened, we had a line of people in front of our booth.
And none of them were female.
I don't think
So-
they were all female.
So anyway, I think I'm a pretty good beer pourer. It's never really been a thing where it's like, man, I wish I had a machine that I could pay $200 for that would pour this beer better than I can do it. So I don't know if I'm buying it. If you watch the video, there's all their little graphics and stuff with the small bubbles, and they make it look like it's
Was this on an adult
a
website?
good pour. No, it's,
I mean, that was like a minute long or more. It seemed it's probably not that complicated, but the way they describe it is very detailed.
I thought it was
It's
a
so
Saturday
many
Night Live
steps.
sketch.
They added a lot of science to something that really shouldn't be all that scientific.
No, it might be. It actually might be really cool. I wouldn't pay $200 for it. I probably would pay $5 for it, and so we're
Maybe 10.
maybe 10.
I don't think I'd waste the counter space.
all right. Well, physics, if you want to prove us wrong, send us one of your devices and we'll try it out and see. We'll even do a side-by-side comparison with a Bud Light that was poured out of a bottle and one that was used physics
So
to
they'll
make
both,
the
they'll both
perfect.
taste like shit.
And we'll take one to the bar, and one person will buy somebody a beer that's a normal beer, and then we'll do a physics beer and see if the dude gets laid. If not, it's a waste. Well, it's
Good point.
Funny. It's funny though because it sounds like it's dude.
I gotta explain it.
I don't think it was that funny.
I didn't say it was funny, but it does sound.
You just did.
Okay. So it does sound like a bunch of guys got together and they created something that they were passionate about, but it's like, man, you guys have got too much time on your hands. Do something else. So
I think you're right. It's an SNL skit.
It was an SNL skit for some wacky sex toy.
See, I saw the actual video, so I missed out on all the innuendo of watching it, without seeing it, what they're doing. So anyway,
The trigeminal nerve.
we'll see if it ever gets off the ground.
It's the most sensual nerve.
All right, here we go. Space beer. All right, so last week we read the story. Ninkasi partnered up with some rocket guys, and they sent some yeast into space. I think it was like 74 miles up in the air, which is about 10 miles further than what is generally considered in space. And it spent about 4 minutes up there and returned to Earth. They located where the rocket landed, and they were able to get 4 out of the 6 strains of yeast that survived it, the heat, and and then shipped it up to Oregon, and they brewed this beer. This is Ninkasi Ground Control, and it's pretty hard to get your hands on. They didn't brew too much of it, but the Ninkasi shipped a keg of it and a couple of bottles to my friend at OTP, and so he sold me a bottle of it last night, and I was hell bent on getting this beer for this show, and now we get to try it.
I'm super excited to try this too.
So I got one of the first pours, and most people don't have this yet, but this is one of the most interesting smells on a beer I've smelled. It's I don't even know how to describe it. It does not smell like any other beer.
Do you think that maybe some type of force interfered with the yeast when it was in space?
I mean, it's not bad. I don't know how to describe it.
It's like it's been hit with a bunch of gamma rays or something.
When I try not to look at it, but if you just smell it, it sounds. It smells like it would be a sweet brown ale.
I mean, we're going for the dark beers so far. There's not a lot of light getting through there. It's like almost like looking up at the space.
It is from space.
It's definitely the stout. Like compared to the last beer, the porter that we had, this one's definitely a darker beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeff's right on the aroma. I'm trying to think of words to describe it, and I have nothing to describe it.
It just smells very yeasty to me.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I don't know.
It's a lot sweeter than I thought it was going to be.
Wow.
Yeah, especially on the finish.
Brandon, you want to read what's on the box there?
I can. Ground Control boldly combines local and out-of-this-world ingredients. This rich, complex imperial stout is brewed with Oregon hazelnuts, star anise, cocoa nibs, and fermented with an ale yeast that survived a trip to space and back. Mankind will enjoy the sweet finesse of this beer that only fares better with time. Enjoyed since 2015, 10% alcohol by volume.
All right.
So I pick up the first thing I got was the hazelnut.
For sure.
Like really, I'm getting a little bit of the cocoa nibs. There's like the bitterness of the cocoa chocolate. It's a solid beer. I wonder if this is what they planned on brewing when they got back. There were 4 out of 6 packets, strains, or they sent it up there and then they had to decide what they're going to do. So it would be fun to hear more of the story of this, more than what's on the box.
Yeah, on the news section on the website, I posted a link to the article, and they mostly talked about the trials and tribulations it took to get the yeast into space. They had to go drive 150 miles into Mexico to get dry ice so that they could get back, and they almost missed the flight. And they actually the first one failed. The rocket landed too far off course, and by the time they got there, all of it had died. So this was their second attempt.
That makes sense.
And I guess when it lands in some missile thing in the desert, like where all kinds of rockets just crash land after they. It's like a testing ground.
I think this is one of those beers where the taste doesn't really match the smell for me. I agree with Andy. It's a really solid and tasty beer. I think this is great. It's delicious. Imperial stout. It looks how I would expect it to taste, but it's sweeter than most, and I think it's a really phenomenal beer.
And 10% is no joke, but it's not very alcoholic tasting to me.
No, I don't think so either.
So maybe this is one of those beers though that's it's a winter beer for me. It needs to be a little cooler outside, and maybe they had planned on that being the case, and it took longer to get the deal done with the space.
They did have to go to space and back.
They had to go to space and back, so it kind of pushed the timeline back a little bit. But like I said, it's something that I wish I had, back in December or January.
Right, but then they're saying on the box even age it, So
yeah.
Maybe in another.
We'll have to get another bottle and let it rest till November, December.
And see if it's out of this world.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
So I was looking online, and I was actually looking at an article of the most expensive beers of all time. And one of the top ones was a beer that in 2006 that Japanese and Russian scientists tested how well barley would grow in space. And so they rocketed barley seeds to the International Space Station, planted them in one of the service modules, and after 5 months in orbit, the 4th generation of barley was brought back to Earth, where Sapporo fermented it into the world's first space beer. A 6-pack cost $110.
Let's get it.
So at $15 for this bottle, I think we're
Doing pretty good.
doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but this is not the first space beer, but it's the first space yeast beer. It was the barley that was the previous space beer.
It's a pretty impressive box too. We'll take a picture and put it up on the website.
Yeah. So as I was looking for those most expensive beers, I came across a beer trivia question. There is a UK brewery called Brewdog, which everyone knows, who in 2011 came out with a new beer called The End of History. How was this beer packaged?
Andy.
Andy, you can't answer it.
Okay.
It comes inside a real dead animal. The bottom of the beer bottle has a cyanide pill encased in the glass.
Does that make sense?
It has a picture of Princess Diana as the beer label.
Brandon, comes inside a real dead animal.
I agree.
Joel?
Yeah.
You're just going to concur?
Yeah.
Correct.
I was going to...
You're all right.
But what animal is it?
It was a squirrel.
Yeah.
I was going to say brown.
They only made 10 of these beers, and they cost about $400 a piece or something. It was one of the most expensive beers ever. I think the 4th most.
Now, was it a rotten squirrel or was it like a taxidermied squirrel?
Taxidermy.
Okay.
But they only made 10 of them, I think.
And it's wrapped around the bottle.
Got it.
We don't have one here. Is that what you're saying?
No.
PETA block.
I'm working on...
Yeah, Peter wouldn't be happy with that.
Let me know if you need a squirrel.
I was going to say Vader could probably grab you a squirrel if you need one.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll try and get the beer, and if we need to get an animal, then I know who to ask. All right, next beer. We have Britain made a trip to Kentucky and brought back several beers with her, and one of them was Southern Pecan from Lazy Magnolia Brewery in Mississippi.
And half the adventure here is going to be for all of us to share 12 ounces.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I was up against weight requirements.
How
for
much
my
were you
suitcase,
allowed?
So, 50 pounds, and I hit 49, so I couldn't.
Oh, that's pretty good, though.
Yeah.
That's like maximizing what you can bring. Did you have a hairdryer?
I did.
Oh, so, see?
I brought back
There's one at the
5
hotel.
bottles, and 5 bottles and 2 cans.
Nice. So those are beers that we'll be having on upcoming shows. We have a tough time here getting beers. I mean, obviously, we're in California. We have a lot of Oregon, California beers, West Coast for the most part. And anytime we can get our hands on beer from the South or the East Coast or even up north, we try and do that so that we're not so West Coast centric. So, if you have any beers that you want to send us from the East Coast, feel free.
So what's the style on this one? Butter pecan ale?
I think it's a brown ale.
Brown ale?
I like the color of this beer.
Yeah. For everybody's ounce they got here, it's I had to be concerned. There's still some left, maybe. No, not.
I don't
Last
know about
pour
you
was a little
guys.
heavy, so
It looks a little pecan colored.
It piqued my interest because it does say that it is the first beer in the world brewed with pecans.
So before anybody takes a sip, smell it. To me, it smells like tomato juice.
I kind of thought urine for a second.
Could be that too.
A little bit of that.
The first smell was
Damn,
the
Mark,
tomato thing. I could get that. Or like just
That's what it
canned
is, right?
tomatoes,
Yeah,
you
canned
know.
tomatoes.
But after that, I don't get it.
Keep sniffing, and one long sniff, and I get urine.
I think maybe you
maybe your
dribbled a
nose
little
is
bit
broken.
earlier.
It could be. I don't know.
You always have the most interesting descriptions, Britain. I'll give you that.
Whoa.
Oh,
Britain
Yeah.
experiments a lot.
I don't know.
it's
about
like not very good.
it tastes like water with some.
Butter.
Some burnt butter.
I'm definitely not getting any pecan.
actually sounds kinda
No,
good.
it tastes like it's super watery.
What style does it say it is? Anybody look?
It is very watery.
It's on the bottle.
It's only 4.5%. So this is a Bud Light.
The original
Yeah.
pecan nut brown ale is what it
Yeah.
bills itself
They
as.
shoulda-
There's some creaminess, like
Yeah, but it's that watery cream.
It's
It's
very
like,
watery.
Now keep in mind, we just drank a lighter but dark beer, followed by a pretty heavy imperial stout.
but this reminds me of, you drink chocolate milk and then you drink Yoo-Hoo, which is like a watered chocolate drink. This is a Yoo-Hoo.
So what's that beer that we drink from? Well, was it the banana bread?
Banana Wells.
Banana Wells. It's very similar in my opinion. I have what's it called? Banana something.
Wells banana bread?
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
Oh yeah, that.
this.
We have to mention that on each show. It's part of our contract.
And Joel has to screw it up every time.
I don't have a lot of experience with Southern beers, but it kind of reminds me of Abita. Like Abita has this kind of, it's from New Orleans,
Yeah.
Louisiana. It's got this different taste to the water. Like there's something in the water,
Yeah.
and I kind of feel like it's a similar taste with this.
Rotting crocodiles and snakes.
Just
That's
something
a good point. Yeah,
It's-
it does have a little Abita to it.
It's not quite what I expected, but I also think that, well, I guess that's kind of like Bud Light. Like, it's watery enough, I could drink a bunch of it.
I will say,
because there's not a lot to it.
It's like Yoo-Hoo.
for a brown ale, that's not what I would consider. This was not what I would classify it as if I was just drinking it. And even based on the color, it's like,
But
I don't know. It's not a.
I thought it was going to be super sweet though. I
So
thought it was
did
going to
I.
be like pecan pie.
So
not,
did I.
Not really. It's like it's kind of a lighter beer with a little bit darker characteristics. And if you're going to drink a Bud Light or this, I'll take this every day.
Yeah.
It kind of is like a carbonated iced tea.
There's not much carbonation.
I thought it was pretty flat myself.
Yeah.
It's flat, but it's foamy. It's got this kind of lingering foaminess to it. Like
Now-
it's like banana pudding.
So that last space beer
Or
was
creamy, yeah.
75 miles up. This one is only 6. So maybe that's
This
the
is-
difference.
Right. It was in
This
the
is-
airplane. Yeah.
Maybe this is below sea level too.
That was deep, guys.
I don't. What was that?
Maybe it's below sea level.
Probably not.
Yoo-Hoo.
Yeah, you're right on the Yoo-Hoo.
Right?
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to take our quick break. But when we come back, we have our Strange Brew segment with a beer from Dogfish Head. And then we try the new Game of Thrones beer, Three-Eyed Raven. And then we answer the age-old question of why beers that come in a bottle are different than those in a can. We'll be right back here on the Beer of the Day podcast. All right, it's finally here. The new website is up and ready to go, and you need to come and check it out and let us know what you think. Beer of the Day, every day we put up a new beer that's featured. And if you've had it before, you can come and rate it. You can leave comments on it. You can even write your own description of it if you want. And if it's good, we'll make that the official description of the beer. This podcast is a big part of the website. Every podcast, we go and add in every beer that we are going to drink here tonight. We write a description of it. We upload photos of it. And you can do the same thing with beers that you have when you try them. Every user can come and upload a beer, add beers, and upload photos of them. You can also take that on the road. If you are in a bar or a brewery and you have a smartphone, you can take a picture of a beer, send it to our phone number, and it will ask you, what beer is this? Or what brewery is this? You just tell it, and it will automatically upload your photo straight to the site. We can also send you an email with the beer of the day each day, or a text message, and you can rate the beer straight from your phone or write your comments of it. So there's a lot to do, and that's just scratching the surface of what the new beer of the day can do. So www.beeroftheday.com is the URL, and definitely let us know what you think. We have an email address, feedback@beeroftheday.com, and we'll probably read your comments right here on this program. Now let's get back to the show. We have our Strange Brew segment. Welcome back to the show. We have, for our Strange Brew segment, from Dogfish Head in Milton, Delaware, Positive Contact. Now, some people here say we've had this beer before. I don't remember it. Some people say we had it on a previous episode of this podcast. Maybe I'll have to go back and listen to what we said then. But I'm taking this as a new one, and we'll see if taking a sip of this jogs my memory. 9%. I don't know what this beer is supposed to be.
Okay, so it's an ale brewed with apple cider and spices, a positive combination of Fuji cider, slow roasted farro, a bit of cayenne, and fresh cilantro. Do you remember that?
I remember picking this out.
It sounds strange to me.
Sounds interesting though. Like I'm kind of looking forward to it. I know I haven't had it. If this has been part of a show, I was not
If
here
at
for
all.
it. But I'm looking forward to trying it. See how it tastes. What kind of style did it say it was?
It's an ale. No, it says ale brewed with all this crap.
So I remember having it before only because Positive Contact is a song by Del the Funky Homo Sapien and Dan the Automator.
Remember this?
Yeah,
You remember this?
But wasn't that a different beer? That because they name all their beers
No.
after the same
That was this
underground
beer.
No,
thing.
it was Positive Contact.
Mm.
But anyway, you guys made fun of me for
I remember making
nerding
fun
out
of you.
on it.
Well, that's not saying much if this beer is not that memorable.
Smells like apple juice.
I'd say I definitely get the Fuji apple, the apple juice smell.
Fuji's my favorite apple.
Me too. None of that green stuff.
Yeah, definitely an apple cider smell.
I mean, it does not taste like 9% for sure. Tastes like juice.
It seems like everybody's, regardless if you're a first pour or last pour, is a little bit cloudy, a little murky.
Yeah, there's some floaties in mine for sure.
Little yeast hanging out.
I feel like I was a middle pour.
Maybe it's the cilantro.
Definite floaties.
I don't taste any cilantro.
What's the spice? Is it cayenne pepper or something?
There's cayenne and fresh cilantro.
Maybe just a touch of the pepper, not a lot, but there is, like how apple cider kind of gets that spiciness, and this has a little spiciness to it.
I think the description is pretty accurate. I do get a little bit of cilantro, and there's a very subtle underlying heat.
I don't get any
You
of
don't
that.
get any of that?
Not
I
one
do.
bit. I get a little bit of apple that's kind of balanced out with some spice, but not anything like that they describe. I don't get any cilantro. I don't get any cayenne pepper.
To me, it tastes natural, like unfiltered apple juice. You know, that when it has that sort of different taste than
You mean
apple juice from concentrate.
like cider?
Kind of cider, or
Yeah.
just there's like Trader Joe's apple juice that's unfiltered.
It definitely doesn't taste like a 9%. It
No.
tastes like apple juice. I'm with Jeff. I agree with him.
Yeah, for sure.
I get a little bit, and I think it's if you had cayenne and cilantro together, and you could take the spiciness out of the cayenne. Like I get that tongue like tingling feeling
Mhm.
without the spice.
I think that this is not that strange of a beer. It's more apple cider than your average beer, but it's pretty drinkable to me. It's not like I would have no problem drinking the rest of this bottle.
I just think it's a strange brew because to me it doesn't taste like beer. It
Yeah, I was
tastes
gonna
like
say,
apple juice.
That's true.
I think you could put
That's
this
good.
up against some other apple ciders, and people that drink cider would be able to.
Yeah, I don't know that it's that cidery.
Yeah, I don't think it is either, because we had a farmhouse ale. We split between the three of us right before the show started, and this tastes like that with a little bit of appleness to it, but not a ton. I mean, you do get a little bit of the yeast, that fresh flavor that you're talking about in that, Trader Joe's apple juice. But yeah, no, I do think it's more similar to a farmhouse ale than a cider to me.
I mean, I do pick up on the pepperiness and the cilantro now, but I just think it tastes more like a juice than a beer. I think you could put this in front of somebody and they may not know there's alcohol in this.
This is one that I would like to try after it's warmed up a little bit, just because
Yeah,
it's still
it
pretty
might
cold. I think
bring
we would
out
get a
some
little more flavor after it's warmed up a little bit.
It is a lot of conversation regarding this beer, though. I mean, it is. I think it's we're kind of divided on it, and I'd be curious to think what you guys think of it in regards to a beer that you'd want to have again.
I want to know what we thought the last time we had it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll dig that up,
yeah.
and we can listen to that afterward. All right, so 2 weeks ago, we made a trip to Lagunitas. I mean, we've been to Sierra Nevada, big California brewery. We've been to Stone in San Diego, another big one. But we've never been to Lagunitas, and that's, probably the third biggest one in California.
And it's in our backyard, essentially.
Yeah, it's, maybe an hour and
Hour and a half.
away, if that. So as we were driving there, we were trying to psych ourselves up for our Lagunitas visit, and we recorded this when we were stuck in traffic. Hi, this is Dallas. I am in the car with Andy, Kira, and Brandon, and we are on the way to Lagunitas Brewery in Petaluma. So in order to get psyched up for our visit, we're going to play a little game where we go around in a circle and pass the microphone, and we try and name a Lagunitas beer that no one else has named yet. Now you'll have 10 seconds to think of a beer. If you can't think of one, you have to pass. If you pass, you lose, but you can still keep playing. But the last person alive that can think of a beer that hasn't been named yet is the winner. I will start it out, and I'll start it out easy, and we'll go in a circle. Lagunitas IPA.
I'll go with Lagunitas Equinox Pale Ale.
Lagunitas little something something.
Lagunitas Censored.
Ooh. Lagunitas Pills.
Lagunitas Brown Sugar.
Lagunitas Hairy Eyeball.
Lagunitas Nighttime.
Lagunitas Serious Pale.
Lagunitas Daytime.
I don't have any more.
Yeah, think for 10 seconds.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know anymore. Brandon.
Apparently we were passing somebody.
Lagunitas Waldo's Special.
He had that the previous night.
Yeah, I did.
Lagunitas Cappuccino Stout. Had that the previous week.
Lagunitas Maximus.
I was wondering when somebody was going to say that one.
It's getting tough.
Can't believe I didn't come up with the one we talked about afterwards.
The fusion beers too. We didn't even hit those.
Hop Stupid.
Yeah, that's the one I can't believe I didn't come up with.
one.
Lagunitas Undercover Shutdown.
Okay.
Got it.
I think that was the winner there.
Lagunitas Sucks.
Ah, shit.
All right, that was fun. Yeah, so there's a lot of beers from Lagunitas, and
We didn't even get all of them.
we didn't get all of them, but it's tough to find a bad one. So we went to the brewery in Petaluma, and we kind of parked across the street, and we walked up there, and for a brewery as large as it is, it's kind of kept this small feeling. Like it's not. It started in one building, and they've kind of expanded to different buildings around this block that they're at.
Yeah.
But you don't get the impression that it's like Sierra Nevada, where it's like this huge billion-dollar, corporation or whatever.
It's definitely a very laid back feel. I mean, other than the fact that you can see the huge, gallon tanks in the back, but you walk up and it's just a regular bar. It's got an outside patio, an outside dining area.
The
it's
food
just
looked amazing.
All of the employees have a beer in their hand.
Yes.
Even the guy out directing traffic.
Yes.
I don't even know how that's legal, but he has a beer in his hand. Every employee, that's just their thing. They always have a beer. And they're just so laid back. Like our tour guide.
Yeah, that guy was high as a kite.
Yeah.
And he just tells a story about how their owner and the founder of Lagunitas is like a big proponent of the wake and bake.
Yep.
He's like they're very 420 friendly, and
Yeah, me too.
even in how they name their beers, they've always had those the pot names, and there's just this like kind of hippie vibe, kind of laid back vibe to the whole place.
Until you get in and actually see the brewing where it's set up, though, when we walked in and it's fully automated, the amount of grain that flows through that place, all automated, it's very high tech.
Cool. That was really cool.
Right, but they only had I think 2 brew houses on the premises. So contrary to Sierra Nevada, who's has a ton of them, they only have 2, but then they have the process automated where they are pumping beer through there 24/7, around the clock. And so they get the most out of their equipment. I think Sierra Nevada kind of has it where they have so much different facilities that they have to work with, but Lagunitas is making the most of what they have in a small area. Now they did open up a huge new brewery in Chicago. It's just acres and acres, and I think that's where they spent their money, to build their huge facility so they could meet the demand. They said it was a big problem for them because they couldn't fulfill all the orders that they had for their beer, and it hurt them business-wise. And so now they've opened up the Chicago facility, and now they're able to supply to the East Coast and to Europe, and everywhere can get Lagunitas, and they're able to produce enough of it.
And they did say the founder's from Chicago, so that kind of played a part in Chicago getting a brewery.
Yeah, and the proximity to Lake Michigan.
Free water.
Yep.
But overall, I would say it was a really good trip. I enjoyed it. Lagunitas was fun. Then we proceeded there to hit some of the other local breweries. So.
Yeah, and we talked about Russian River on the last show. So we got a Lagunitas beer to try. I think some of us have had it. I have not had it. It's their Equinox Ale, and they call it an American Pale Ale. It's really 8%, so it's got to be in the American IPA range. But I'm interested to try this one.
I've had this beer recently, and I was really impressed with it. And I think, for maybe it was the distribution channel that I got it at, but, it was a very affordable beer. And I remember when I tasted it, the first thing I thought was man, this is what you often pay $8 to $10 for a 22-ounce beer for. And what 8% alcohol, you're getting your bang for the buck here. It's a great beer. I won't go into details until everybody has to try it at the same time, but I was impressed at the value you got on this beer.
Yeah, and it's pretty popular right now. I see it in a lot of grocery stores. I mean, I think they're kind of pushing this one.
Kind of a golden straw color.
I love the scent. It's this fresh, hoppy flavor that I love. I feel like I talk about that a lot, but that is like the perfect beer to me.
It's definitely hop forward on the aroma. You get it's in your face for sure.
Dallas, I'm reminded when I smell this of when we walked into the hop refrigerator at Sierra Nevada, and that floral, just hop fresh, totally.
Yeah, it's a great
smells
smell.
Awesome.
It smells delicious is what it smells like.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably, one of the better smelling beers I've smelled in a long time.
So they call it a genuine pale oat ale. And I get some oat there. I think that's what that is on the nose. So this is a beer that I had heard that they had brewed before. I don't know when the last time they brewed it, but it says it's first brewed in 1995 and then brewed today in a time of change, whatever that means. There's probably a story there we don't have.
Probably like a marching band and people moving the brewery from down the street.
Or it could be like a Jenner thing. That was so
Crickets.
bad. I'm so sorry. That was a Bruce Jenner joke, and it was awful.
Well, a valiant effort. Yeah, they had a lot of stories. I mean, I think like half the tour was just telling stories about how Lagunitas got started. Their head brewer got someone gave him a home kit, they gave it to him because he was spending too much money on beer, and so they thought that as when they gave it to him that you could save money by brewing your own beer, which if you've ever brewed your own beer, that's not the case. But the guy brewed his own beer, and it was pretty good, or it was terrible the first time. The second one was pretty good, and after his 10th batch, he decided to start Lagunitas Brewing Company. So 10 batches of beer, and he's already...
Joel, you're 2 batches in?
Joel's got 8 to go.
Yeah, I'm 2 batches in, but the first thing I realized in brewing my own beer is, man, somehow you got to get the hops out of there. Because we were just drinking like bread. It was hoppy bread, but there was a ton of hops in there. At one point, I had to have Brandon kick the keg so we could get the hops to come out of the the hose because it got all clogged up.
I'm pretty sure we took it apart, not kicked it.
You should call the physics guys. They might have a solution.
So, anyways, describe this beer. It is definitely like intense on the hops, but in a good way. I think sometimes you'll get some intense hops where it becomes too bitter, but this has got a really good sweet hop flavor. When I describe this, I always think of these kind of hops as like almost like a oily hop where you can taste it instantly. I'm excited that the smell tastes similar to the actual taste.
Yeah, I'm not a person who really likes hoppy beers. I do like this one. It's not super bitter like a lot of hoppy beers can get. I think I like the freshness of it. And like Joel said, it smells a lot like it tastes. Like they're similar. A lot of times with beers, you'll smell it and it doesn't taste anything like it smells. But this one's pretty true to the aroma.
So at 8%, it's kind of like, like Dal said, it's almost the IPA level. But I can tell how this is not an IPA. It's distinctly not an IPA, which I love.
I would say it's not as bitter. Like you don't get that bitterness, but it's definitely get a full hop flavor. Yeah. Like it's very tasty.
I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, it's definitely a pale ale. Yeah. It's just a little hoppier than most pale ales, but it's super smooth. I mean,
but don't you think
start
it's
to finish
sweeter than most pale ales? Because that's that alcohol I think is coming out. It's turning in sugar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just more from the alcohol, but I think you get the hops like an IPA, but it's not as bitter as an IPA, and I think I really like it.
It's
that's
totally
a good
not
description.
As better. Yeah,
you're right on.
And so I've had this a couple of times now, and like I said, this I think is a really good value beer for the price you're going to pay for it. You're not going to get a higher quality beer for the price that you're going to pay.
And I think you have to. Maybe you have to be high to interpret the bottle.
Yeah, the 401k thing.
401k, 301k, 201k. Like it's talking about our economy. But if you read the small print here, it says can, Q-U-A-N. You imagine a world without beer. Everything you, E-W-E, like the sheep, know, G-N-O-E, would be different. Fish, P-H, might fly with a PH. D-A-U-G-S. Dogs might use U-Z-E. Power tool T-O-U-L-S. Friday with a PH. Nights might M-I-T-E be spent building trees out of the day after tomorrow's pea stale sour cream with a Q and cheese leavings. It's like
we need some dope.
It's out there.
I had a boyfriend who talked like that when we were high in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, he brewed this beer.
Yeah.
So it's
at least wrote the label.
It's pretty crazy. Like
you had other boyfriends?
No, not one.
No, in Santa Cruz only. It's a different zip code.
What do we got next?
Anyone have any?
Doesn't count.
Anyone have any other memories from our trip to Lagunitas?
I remember I wasn't there.
I remember we were at a different brewery when you were at Lagunitas.
Yeah.
There's no bitterness over here, I swear.
Oh, no. The food smelled tomatoes. I was starving.
It was great. The service was actually pretty good. We didn't. There was a
It was
ton of
packed.
We didn't stand in line. We walked up to the bar.
Yeah,
we
well,
went bar status.
there were idiots that were standing in line, and then there was us.
Yeah, but so they have this place is pretty big with picnic tables and
two bartenders serving 3,000 people.
right, but every table was full.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
one of those things where you have to wait for someone to get up before you can sit down, and everybody was just. It was a nice sunny afternoon. Everyone was having a great time. So
Dallas sent us a picture, and the line was insane.
I will say we had 4 different beers, and they all looked identical when we tried the 4 different beers. I don't remember what the 4 are off the top of my head, but they all had that same exact copper color. They all smelled very similar.
Signature.
Yeah.
It was probably actually this
is
this
way
looks-
different. Way
well,
different.
Yeah, it looks lighter. It's a little lighter colored, a little more yellow.
yeah. So anyway, it was a pretty fun time. All right, let's get into the next one here. Ommegang, Brewery Ommegang in New York has partnered with Game of Thrones to produce beers for related to the television show and kind of a marketing thing. But a few months ago, we tried the first one in the series, which was Valar Morghulis, which means all men must die. And the next beer in the series is the Three-Eyed Raven, which took a big part of last season, the 4th season. And so we thought we'd give Three-Eyed Raven a try. And because the first one, Valar Morghulis, is still available, we'll stack them up against each other side by side, and we'll figure out what's the best beer of the day. Best Game of Thrones beer so far.
Dallas, where's your glass?
Right here.
So, you guys want to do it side by side?
Yeah.
I'll do one then the other.
Yeah.
I'll do one.
Well, let's talk about the first one first, and then we'll just kind of compare it.
Good head.
The head is
The
good.
head is
The,
good.
the head is good. No
Nope.
physics needed here.
No one's gonna know what that means.
How can we drink this without physics?
If they watch Boardwalk
It looks
Empire.
pretty fizzy to me.
Look at this one.
Those physics guys are full of shit.
That
Physics
John
is a system
Denver
that
was
takes
full
any
of
carbonated
shit.
beer and makes it awesome.
It makes it awesome, Andy.
Makes it- Did you hear that they're like jerking off raccoons?
The thermodynamic
your
germy.
your tentacles.
Don't ever expect a free physics.
Yeah, we're not getting that. Paying full price.
So this is the third eye, right?
Nope. Oh yeah.
Three-eyed raven.
Not to be confused with third eye blind.
Not to be confused with the third eye.
Or Wells.
Wells
banana.
All right, here we go.
Let's bring it back together,
Let's
guys.
bring it back. All right, so this looks a lot like the first beer we had.
Yeah, it's a little more transparent on the darkness, the thickness, I guess.
Right, there's a little more light that gets through, but it's a very dark brown color.
It's like a light roast coffee.
So this has a mouthfeel of like a root beer. I was, it had a lot of carbonation when I tasted it.
Jeff's making faces over here.
Well, what kind of beer is this? Is it a
So it's
strong ale?
I was going to get in that. What do you think it is? That's a good question.
I mean, it's not quite a sour, but it's kind of like I would call it a strong. Saison.
It's
a
a
red,
dark
like
saison.
dark saison.
It's a dark saison, and they say.
I was gonna say it has a taste of a saison,
I was
just
gonna-
not the color.
Yep, absolutely.
It-
What's our 7.2 on this? That's about right. I don't taste hardly any alcohol on it.
It's kind of, there's just not a lot of flavor to me. Like it kind of lies flat on my tongue.
Kind of like this show.
We'll see.
So it, it doesn't have a lot of hop flavors or different kind of unique hops, but it does have a lot of malts and barley flavors to it, but they're not intense at all. I'm missing a lot. I wish there was some more unique hops in it.
I mean, it tastes like a saison. I mean, it's for the style. It's a good beer.
I haven't had a dark saison before that I can remember.
Either can I. But
Usually they're going to be that lighter blonde type style of beer. So there are some toasty notes there that go along with that funky saison yeast.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. I think that's spot on.
So Brewery Ommegang, they're doing this thing with Game of Thrones. They're owned now by a Duvel, who's the biggest brewer in Europe. They're basically the Budweiser of Europe. So they're doing a lot of this high dollar stuff. And
is it Duvel or Duvel?
Duvel.
It's an honest question.
Duvel.
Don't know.
I don't know.
I say Duvel.
I say
always
Duvel.
said it in my mind, Duvel.
I'm pretty sure they say Duvel over there.
They might.
We will find out next month.
Let's ask David Duvel.
I like this. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like some people don't feel like there's a lot of flavor, but I think this is really tasty.
There's a surprising amount. I get the coffee notes. I don't know if anybody else is, but
I don't get coffee at all.
I don't get coffee either, but I agree with Jeff. I think it's tasty.
It's more of a fruitiness to me, not a coffee flavor. It looks like a porter, like a reddish. It's got more of a reddish hue to me than a porter, but I taste some fruity, I don't know, fermentation.
I don't get the fruit, but I do get an ever so slight sour that's not unpleasant, if that makes sense.
the coffee show we did, there was one, the Belgian coffee beer. Which one was that? From Eagle Rock?
Eagle Rock.
Stimulus.
Yeah, this reminds me
A
of
little
that.
bit.
But that's where I get the coffee thing too.
I think the finish is kind of similar, but I don't get any coffee flavor.
Yeah, the
in
finish.
this.
On the finish, for
Yeah.
sure.
There's definitely something about it, and I just can't place what it is. I'm kind of with Jeff that there's a little bit of a fruitiness to it, and I just can't figure out what that fruitiness is. But I think it's a pretty tasty beer for the style.
So I have to ask: is the three-eyed raven like consequential to the show? Is that
Yes.
Kind of.
a thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it after the first episode?
Yes.
Yes.
Significantly after.
I haven't gotten there yet.
You're missing out.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's compare it to the previous Game of Thrones beer. When I had this one the first time, I wasn't a huge fan of it, and to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Three-Eyed Raven either. Maybe it just doesn't go well with my taste buds. Maybe it has to do with the ones we just had being a little more flavor forward.
Or even complex. This is a very similar taste across the whole board. It's not changing much.
That's true. So we can try this one. Now, this one, as I recall, is more of a Belgian style.
Quite a bit lighter in color. It's like a kind of a brownish, slightly coppery color.
Definitely more Belgian and fruity. Without taking a sip, the scent is very fruity.
Yes.
Very fragrant.
And I think this is a lot more complex than the other one. I took a swig of it, and it's sweeter for sure. And
it smells very sweet.
Yeah, it is sweet, and it's not as filtered as the other beer. It's a little bit more cloudy and murky, but it definitely has that Belgian taste to it.
And what kind of style do we think this is?
I think this one's Belgian. We've had it before. I don't remember.
Is it like a double?
Brandon has the bottle there.
I got the bottle. What does everybody think?
Hold on.
I think a double.
Mine's very thick-headed.
Double Belgian.
They need the fucking
one quad
the
Belgian.
fizz jizz, guys. I would say Belgian double. Yeah.
Everybody in
Me too.
agreement?
Quad,
Same?
but that's my
Double.
guess.
It's not strong enough for a quad.
Well, Joel's wrong. It's a double.
What's new?
Ah,
Dang it.
So it took me a while to find it.
I do know. I do know this one said to serve at 50 degrees. Is that what it says on the bottle?
I'm looking. I don't see it yet.
Bottom of the label. I think the previous one we
Yes.
said they want
Serve at 50 degrees.
and this one, the previous one said serve at 40. So I think they want this one to be a little bit warmer.
Yeah. The first one we were probably pretty close to 40. This one's still probably pretty close to 40. So you can kind of warm it up, especially in these little Spiegel glasses. You can get some warmth in there.
In comparing the two, I think the Three-Eyed Raven is simpler. This one's a little bit more complex to me. But I like it
Well, you
better.
should expect that. I mean, when comparing the Belgian to Saison, it should have more complex flavors. So I haven't tried it yet. Well, I've had it before, but I haven't tried it today.
It's good.
I had this on tap, to be honest, like on about a week ago. First time ever. Tastes about the same, but I had one of these and I did not want to have a second one. That was just my feeling. I prefer Three-Eyed Raven. This is not bad. It's pretty tasty, but one, you have a whole glass of this and you don't want to have a second.
So I'm with Jeff. I do not like this beer. I think it's got some unique taste to it that I do not like. It's not something that I want to remember. And
I didn't say that.
No. I'm speaking out.
We drank this beer on this show the first time, and you said the exact same thing.
It pisses me off.
Joel doesn't like Belgians though. Like,
I was gonna
he
say, I
just
think a lot of that
doesn't
has
like
to do with
Belgians.
the style of beer, though. Like,
But I like Belgians. I especially like Belgian doubles. I drink them on a regular basis. I'll buy one of these bottles and drink it myself. I agree with Jeff where, it's too much of something that's not that great. It's okay, but I would.
There's definitely other doubles that I'd
a
rather
lot of
have.
other doubles I'd rather have.
Okay, it tastes like processed sugar to me. I'm sorry. That's why I don't like it. I'll say it. I'll be honest. I don't want to have it again. It pisses me off.
Well, you don't have to have it again.
This is the last time.
I'm not getting it anymore.
Make it stop.
Ever.
It
Okay, so
won't be available.
So the third Game of Thrones beer comes out from Ommegang.
all right. So of the two, which one do you choose, Andy?
The Three-Eyed Raven. It's just more interesting beer to me for the style. Like I said, this what is this called? Valar Morghulis. Is that a
that's
character?
it.
You got it.
No,
No,
but
it's
it's a saying.
an old Valerian.
Okay. Well, regardless, it's not a good version of a beer I really enjoy, and so I would pass.
Britain.
I think I'm gonna have to apply the third sip rule. I think at first I really liked it. I still think it's interesting. It has a lot going on, but I'm also gonna go with the Three-Eyed Raven. I think I especially agree with what Jeff said in that, like, I'm not gonna want to drink more of this.
Joel.
It's complex and I don't like it.
Okay, you're Three-Eyed Raven. Jeff.
Definitely Three-Eyed Raven. Britton said the same thing I was going to say with the Valar Morghulis. I'm mispronouncing that. But the first sip was the best one, and with each sip, it got remarkably worse. And not to like a point where I don't want to drink it, but the first sip was by far the best. So I got to go with Three-Eyed Raven.
Your headphones working okay?
Mm-hmm.
Three-Eyed Raven.
Kira, what'd you like?
I like the second one, the Margulis.
This one?
I'll agree with Kira. The Three-Eyed Raven, to me, it just doesn't agree with
I couldn't
your
finish
palate.
the first one,
with
so-
my palate. I'm just not. It's like drinking. I take a sip, I get a little flavor, and then I get like this void where I don't taste anything. And I don't even much care for this second one, but it's better than the first.
I definitely
So-
passed off the first one. So.
They both suck.
But hey, Three-Eyed
Yeah, I was
Raven.
gonna say I really don't like either
I
of
don't
them.
like- They have a different. There's something about it. I'm not a fan of them, but the second one I'd have to go with. In general.
All right.
Yeah, it leaves a bitter. I don't know.
This the Valar Morghulis one like lingers big time.
It's definitely
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Heavy.
it's there.
All right, so Ommegang, hey, let's do a little better job next time. I mean, this is Game of Thrones. It's like the best television show there is at the time. You need to be making the best beer there is.
So, but I think that's just throwing back to they're a mass market producer now. They don't care about how good it is. It's more about the marketing.
Yeah, but Goose Island,
They've done better. I agree, but
they're getting big, but they're still putting out some good shit. So,
We've bought 3 of these now.
Button.
I mean,
We have bought.
if we weren't doing a podcast, I wouldn't have bought these.
no.
That's true.
Yeah.
Definitely not twice.
I was gonna say you probably would have got them once.
The one
I've
time,
had this crap twice.
yeah, the first time, I'll try it at once, of course, because maybe it's really good. But
Try anything once.
yeah, I'm not doing them again. When the third one comes out, we're not buying the first 2 again to compare them side by side.
We'll just try the third one.
We'll just replay this here. We'll rewind and play.
Rewind.
Retape it.
Kind of off topic, but kind of on topic. Isn't Cooperstown where Baseball Hall of Fame
Yes,
is?
Yes.
it is.
Okay, just checking.
Good call there. Okay, so the next segment here is an interesting one. So, first of all, it's a beer that I haven't had before, and it is Two Hearted Ale from Bell's Brewery, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Bell's is a pretty highly rated brewery. You hear a lot of good things. I've had them at some beer festivals before. Pretty darn good. And so we decided to take this opportunity because Jeff came up here for the show tonight, and he brought with him the same beer in a can and a bottle. And so what we're going to do is try each side by side. So many breweries now are coming out with their beer in can form. Sierra Nevada's doing it. Firestone's doing it. Dale's has always done it. Oscar Blues. What are some other ones? 21st Amendment in San Francisco.
We just saw
all
Firestone
cans.
in a
So
can.
it's becoming more and more, especially in the summertime, barbecues, you're floating down the river, you know, you're camping. There's a lot of situations. You go to the cabin. There's situations where having aluminum cans makes a lot more sense because you can crunch them down and pack them out of there easier. You're in the swimming pool. You don't want to break a bottle and have to be picking pieces of shards of glass off the bottom of the pool. So you use a can. Makes a lot more sense. So with all the canned beer, you always wonder, are you going to lose some flavor? And there's a lot of different schools of thought here. Aluminum can doesn't let light in. So you don't have that light struck problem that you get with the bottle. But every brewery that puts the beer in a can say, oh, we have lining in the can that doesn't let any aluminum flavor through.
Which I think is horse crap because I think Bud Light in a can tastes way different than Bud Light in a bottle.
Yeah, well, I think so too.
With my,
but you don't know if that's in your head or not.
Palate.
So we're going to compare them side by side, and see what we can determine as far as what types of flavors we're dealing with here.
So I have two initial comments. Looking at these side by side, the canned beer, first of all, poured a little bit more head. But like the clarity, they're very similar in color, although the clarity is quite a bit different. Like the clarity on the canned beer is very clear. The clarity on the bottled beer is a little hazy. I'm not like really cloudy, but there's a little haziness. There's a different sort of.
Where in your pour were you? Because mine look exactly the same.
Let me see yours, Britton, because mine are like Jeff's.
Mine are exactly.
Hers are almost identical.
Almost identical.
And I think that is a big part of it, especially in the bottle.
Now, to me,
where you are in the pour.
My can beer has a more hop smell than my bottle beer.
The whole time we've been talking, I've been reminding myself, canned is in your left,
So-
bottled's in your right.
So
Don't
my
say
bottle,
that because my can is in my right.
Sorry. Okay.
my bottle one had a lot more like bigger carbonation bubbles. They were both, had the carbonation coming off the bottom, but it was different, and they were very different in clarity, like Jeff's were.
The bottle one was a little more flat.
So look at yours now, Jeff. Do they seem to be evening out a little bit?
Yeah, after a couple minutes after the pour.
So that could just be from the pouring.
Okay, I don't remember what you guys said about aroma and smell, but so my canned smells much more hoppy than my bottled.
I agree.
There's
The
more.
bottle almost had no smell to me.
Correct. Yeah, same
It's
with mine.
More fragrant, more hoppiness.
But I think Andy's right. I think that has to do with the pour than it does anything else. So we'll see here.
Now, the taste for me is a lot more similar than the smell.
I'm just going to drink them at the same time.
I think maybe the bottle has a little more carbonation. I'm not sure, though.
Yes.
I'm not even sure which hand is which anymore.
No, okay, so
But I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the bottle has more.
I like the can.
Can was
better than the
okay, and then bottle was like totally zinging my tongue.
Yeah, the bottle has more carbonation, I believe.
Yeah.
I agree. But there's a creaminess to the can that I like. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, and I don't think the beer's harmed in either way. It's more of opinion, I guess, or whatever.
Personal preference.
Personal preference, or whatever.
Personal preference.
Personal preference, yeah. I like the can better. I like that creaminess factor. I don't like the big bubbles as much. I think you get more flavor off of the smaller bubbles.
I'm getting the same thing that Andy's getting off of the can. It's a lot more subtle tasting in the can. What's happening for when I drink the one that's out of the bottle is it opens up a lot on the finish.
Now, the canned beer, to me, tastes colder than the bottle one. Do you guys get that?
Well, that could be that the can doesn't lose its temperature as fast as the bottle.
The bottle seems to me to be quite a bit, I mean, not quite a bit. We're talking about maybe 5 degrees, but warmer.
I'm not sure about that.
The cans were on ice.
I have a really interesting thing here. So I bought both of these at 2 different stores. But what I think is remarkable, there's a date that it was, canned or bottled on.
Yeah.
They are only 2 days apart.
That's pretty good.
Which is pretty remarkable. They're both very fresh. It was last month, but one of them on the 17th, one of them on the 15th. That's pretty close, especially for buying it at 2 different stores.
Wow, that's pretty.
That's pretty good.
So before we get into who can or bottle, let's talk about the beer. We haven't really gotten to.
Okay, yeah.
So, what is this? It's just an ale.
Two Hearted Ale.
IPA.
To me, it's a lighter, it's kind of a session IPA.
What's the percentage?
7.
But it's a higher alcohol
it's like
than a session
range
IPA.
In between a pale and an IPA.
But it's a session at 7%.
It tastes like like a session IPA.
Okay. Well, I agree that it tastes light for an IPA. I would have, when I first thought it was a pale ale of some sort. It goes down easy.
The thing is, we get into these heavy IPAs where 7% is light. Lagunitas is 7%.
Yeah.
Torpedo. All these mainstream IPAs are that. Mainstream.
This has a mainstream taste to me. But it's a decent beer. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, this is the first IPA I've ever had from Michigan. I'm pretty impressed with. We're so used to drinking these California and Oregon and West Coast IPAs.
Yeah, I like when we make the way east because you get the more malty IPAs, which
you don't get out here for sure.
You don't get out here, and I enjoy a lot. And maybe I enjoy them because we don't have that many of them. We don't have access to a lot of them. But going to your Dogfish Head, your 90-minute, there's a big malt factor in that beer. I love that.
Yeah, I get orange blossom in this a lot.
I was gonna say that too.
Yeah. I've never eaten an orange blossom, but I'll take your word for it.
It's definitely got citrus notes to it. I think the thing that I like about it is, I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. I'm not real big on overly hopped beers, and I think this one is a good balance.
So does everybody remember which one's the can and which one's the bottle?
Yes, I remember.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Can. Got it.
So the bottle has a lot more carbonation. I think that's pretty clear.
And as I'm drinking this longer and it's warmed up, the carbonation I'm more of a fan of.
Yeah.
But I think Andy's right. It's a preference thing because I drink a lot of carbonated water and I like that. I like that feel. I like that mouth feel. But it does change the flavor.
Yeah.
I think the carbonation opens up the flavor on the finish a lot, and it's making the finish linger longer the more carbonated it is.
But initially, I liked the fact that the aroma was so much more on the canned beer. So
but I think the key here is that
and I like the coldness initially, but now they're the same temperature.
I think the key is that you pour it out of the can into a glass. If you drink it straight out of the can.
That's what I was just going to say. For me, I'm not getting a lot of different.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a test here.
So
I think the can ends up more bitter for me than the bottle.
I think what I'm taking away from this is that, yes, there's subtle differences when you're drinking them side by side, but it's the same beer.
Absolutely.
And there's it's such a subtlety that I don't think it matters if you're drinking out of the can or the bottle. It's going to be the same beer and it's going to be fine.
But I think if you drink it directly out of the can, there is that metallic aluminum taste. And maybe it's mental, but when you drink it out of there, it's a different taste than if it's out of a glass.
Well, I'm from Wilton, so I don't know any other way.
I was gonna say, what if you compare? This is interesting because I've had Coors Light out of a can, Coors Light out of a bottle versus or Bud Light out of a can and Bud Light out of a bottle. And in both those cases, I think the bottle's better than the can. And in this case, with the craft brew, I mean, it's for me they're basically the same. You know, I would take either one.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid beer too.
I mean, if you're out on the golf course and they're only gonna let you take a can,
Yeah, I'm a fan of the can. I'm actually, I'm a fan of a lot of the cans we've come across. This here in Nevada, I'll take the pail in a can over a bottle now. I really do. I like that a lot. I like the lack of those bigger bubble carbonation that you get out of the bottle, and this kind of proves what I already knew. I mean, I didn't see it as that, but that's what the difference is.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and even Sierra Nevada out of the can, we drink that a lot when we're playing golf.
Yeah,
both the pale ale and the torpedo, and no problem there. All right, so we've covered a lot in this show. I mean, we started out in Iceland. That seems so far away now. We went into space. We went from Michigan up north down to Mississippi. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Down south to Oregon out west to Delaware out east. I mean, we covered the entire country.
And don't forget Petaluma in the backyard over there.
Right, yeah, right up close. So we've been near and far and pretty much covered all the ground that you cover in this show. Andy, you want to take us through what we tried?
Here we go. So we had the Icelandic Toasted Porter from Einstök Ulgert from Akureyri, Iceland. Did I get that?
I don't think so.
A mere 45-minute flight from Reykjavik is the beautiful town of Akureyri.
Akureyri.
I was pretty close.
Akureyri.
And then we moved on to the Ninkasi Ground Control, the Space Imperial Stout. We had the Lazy Magnolia Pecan Ale from Mississippi.
You mean pecan?
Yes. And then we moved on to our strange brew, the Positive Contact from Dogfish Head. We had the Lagunitas Equinox Ale, the Game of Thrones beer, the first one from Ommegang, the Three-Eyed Raven, and then we had the Valar Morghulis. And then we finished it off with the Two-Hearted Ale from Bell's Brewery in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yes.
That was a lot of beer.
That's a lot of beers.
Yeah. Covered a lot of ground.
8 beers.
It helps when everyone's in the same room.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Jeff winds up drunk.
Yeah. I mean, normally we all share the beers, and then Jeff drinks one of his own. And then, by the end of it, he's waking up and was like, did I do a podcast last night? So you got to share with us tonight. Let's start with Jeff to pick your beer of the day or night.
So this is, I always say it's tough for me. There's 2 really great beers. I think the beer I enjoyed the most was Lagunitas Equinox. But I think with keeping of kind of our theme from previous shows of the beer that I'm most happy or grateful that I got to try tonight, that'd have to be the Ninkasi Ground Control. I don't think I've had a beer with that. I've never had a beer with that scent before, and it was the most unique, interesting, fulfilling beer of the night. So we had a lot of good beers, but that to me was my beer of the day, was the Ground Control.
All right, Brandon.
All right. I'm kind of on the same page as Jeff. I'm just going to go the opposite direction. For me, the Equinox Ale is the beer of the day. It's just that the hop aroma, the flavor, everything is just what I want to drink in a beer. I know it's a style that fits what I like to drink, but I thought that was the best of all the ones that we had. The Ninkasi was a very good beer, and it's a close second. But for me, the Equinox takes it today.
Kira?
I'd probably have to go for the Icelandic Porter. I'm more of a porter stout kind of person. I did like the Ninkasi itself, but I think I'd have to go more for the porter. Just in general, it's kind of my style.
Okay. This is a tough one. I mean, man, there's like 3 that I really like. There can be only one. There can be only one. I am going to choose Ninkasi Ground Control. For the style that it is, we drink a lot of these barrel-aged stouts, and this isn't. Yes, we do.
Jeff's maybe no, we don't.
Maybe you don't. But I've had a lot of these barrel-aged stouts that are 10, 11, 12%, and I thought it was pretty well balanced, especially for being a beer that is kind of a novelty. I mean, you could have sent yeast into space and brought it down and brewed a shitty beer, and I probably still would have been like, oh, that was cool.
Why do you have to go before me and just say what I'm going to say?
Okay.
Because he did.
So I'm going Ninkasi Ground Control. I enjoyed it immensely.
I'm going to second what Dal just said. Exactly what he said is they could have brewed anything with this yeast and it would have sold for $40 a bottle, no problem. But instead, they brewed a great beer. It's very interesting. It has a lot of character. It takes you on a couple trips, with the bitterness and the coffee. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I had it. The Equinox was a great drinker. It's one I'll have on a regular basis if we can continue getting it. But this was one I'm glad I had today. It's not one I necessarily need to have again, but I'm glad I had it tonight.
So for me, I'm with Kiera. It was between the Ninkasi Ground Control and the Icelandic Toasted Porter. I'm a porter stout girl, so the Icelandic one.
You're a girl?
Does your husband know that?
Contrary to popular belief. No,
is this a Bruce Jenner moment?
Shut up. No. So the porter was right up my alley. It was something that I liked and I would definitely drink a lot of. But in keeping with Jeff's theme, I think the one that I'm most glad that I tried was the Ground Control. And it surprised me that I liked it. And it was a very good beer. So I'm going to go with the Ninkasi Ground Control.
Your husband disapproves.
So beer of the day is definitely Ninkasi Ground Control. If I was stuck on a desert island for the rest of my life, I would definitely want the Equinox. That's all I got to say.
Yes. That's your beer of the day?
No, beer of the day is Ninkasi. Beer of the life, if I was stuck on a desert island, Equinox.
You sure it's not the Three-Eyed Raven?
Maybe I bought the wrong domain name. It should be beerofyourlife.com.
We can start that next.
Yeah. If this beer of the day doesn't work out, then we have a fallback plan. All right. Well, it's time to get out of here, but we thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check out our website, beeroftheday.com. If you have any comments, feedback at beeroftheday.com. For Andy Hamilton, Britton and Joel Miner, Brandon Hofer, Kira Hopkin, and Jeff Miller, I'm Dallas Helliker. We'll see you next time here on the Beer of the Day podcast. The Beer of the Day podcast from outer space.